am finally starting to get caught up on all of my Smart Art Box projects. This time I'm going to be sharing marbling paper, which is a lot more fun than it sounds. Hi, I'm Lisa, the artist behind Lachri Fine Art. If you are unfamiliar with the Smart Art Box, it is a monthly subscription box where every month they send you a box full of full-size supplies. One of the best parts about this box is you're not just getting the supplies, you're also getting instructions. You've got a little bit of a history lesson, project pointers, and then step-by-step instructions breaking down exactly how to complete your project. So if it's something that you've never done before, like me with this project, you're not going to feel totally lost. That was really important for me on this one. Just for transparency, this video is being sponsored by Smart Art Box. So let's go ahead and take a look at what came in this month's box. Or last month, because I'm late again. Taking a look at what came in this month's box. First, we have our instructions. This one had such great tips, which was really necessary for me because I've never used this stuff before. We've got a set of Speedball Elegant Writers, 4 of those pens. I've bought those pens before. They're really nice. We have some marbling dye in blue, violet, and black. We've got some marbling medium, a package of Alum, if I'm saying that right, probably not. We have some synthetic Gall, another pen, this one is silver, and we've got this paper that we're going to be using. This stuff was wonderful to work with. It doesn't tear or anything. It just was a really, really nice paper. The prep work for this project took far longer than the actual marbling process. You had to take the paper and treat it with some of the product that came in the box. Once the product was treated, you want to pull the paper out of that, and I'm just using an art tray, pull it out and hang it to dry. I didn't have any clothespins, so I used bobby pins for my hair and sewing thread, because that seems normal, and I hung it on my camera stand that I was filming with, and then I just had a mat underneath it to collect any of the water that was dripping down. Next, we can move on to the fun part. The first thing that I had to do was prepare my water. So before I even started filming this, I've mixed in one of the ingredients, mixed that up really well, and just follow the instructions on your if you're working on this project, follow the instructions very closely. As long as you follow those, they're very, very easy. It gives you the amount that you're going to mix and how long to mix for and all of that stuff. Once that was done and all mixed up, everything was dissolved really well, I'm able to go ahead and start adding in the dye. One of the things that I didn't realize was how little you really need. I used way, way more than I needed just because I wanted to see what was going to happen. I actually used less on my first attempt than I did on the second attempt. The second attempt I used a lot more, and I think it looked a lot better when I used less of the dye. But I'm just adding the dots or drops of this in to start with. It's hard to believe looking at it at this stage that it was ever going to turn into a marbled effect. It was at this point I realized I skipped a step and I forgot to run my paper towel over the top to skim it and get rid of bubbles and such. So I went ahead and did that right over the ink. Luckily, the dye, it didn't mess anything up. This project was so much fun. Once you get to this step, this is where it just really starts getting fun, where you're adding in your dyes and it's very quick to see what happens. There's a lot of prep work involved in mixing all of the ingredients and getting the paper prepped, drying it, and then prepping the water beforehand. But once you get to this stage, everything goes very fast. It was so much fun. It was one of the most enjoyable projects I think I've done. Adding some more of this in here. Next, I made my mixture with the Gall. With this, I added water with the Gall that it came with, the clear stuff. And when you add this in, you just want to add tiny amounts, and it causes that ink, or I keep saying ink, I'm used to using Inktense. It causes the dye to sort of separate, move away, and this is what's going to create more white gaps on my paper, so it's not just all the dark purple, blue, and black dye. This is going to let more of that white paper show through in areas. It was really important to add this part. The second project I didn't use as much of it, and I think it looked way better on my first attempt where I added a lot of it. Now I'm using a straw just to start moving the ink around. I keep saying ink, the dye around. This is what starts creating that marbled look. Then I decided, hey, maybe I need more. I don't know why I thought I needed more, but I did, so I added some more. The nice thing was, I was honestly, even with the instructions, looking back, I know now I used way more of the dye than I needed, but it still came out really good. I was really, really happy with the results that I got from this. Adding more of the gall, getting more of those clear areas. And oh hey, let's add more dye, because, you know, I haven't already added too much. And more. Because, yay, more dye? Seriously, you do not need as much as this. I think for me, I felt like there should have been more at the surface because it kind of sinks to the bottom of the water, and I thought that it needed more on the surface to work, so I must not have enough. Definitely not true. Had some bubbles I needed to get out of there. Using a straw for that. And you can use so many different things to create the actual marbling well, if I ever decide to move on to that section, since apparently I'm just going to keep adding more and more dye. And you'll see when you add the gall, the clear gall stuff, that will cause the ink to move away. It clears that out, and that's why I've got so many empty spots now, because I used so much of it. So now I'm going to go ahead and start mixing this up and creating little shapes. You can use so many different things. I ended up, for the second project, I did this twice. I used the hairpins that were attached to the string. I ran that through it to get some of the marbling effect. There's so many different tools that you can use, to just things you have laying around your house, in order to get different effects for that type, whatever type of marbling you're trying to get. Oh good, more dye. Because I don't know when enough is enough. And even more. Knowing what I know now, it's really funny for me to watch how much of this I just kept squirting in there. And this box comes with a lot of product, so you can actually make a lot of projects. It only has 2 of that type of paper, but you can use other papers and different things to marble on. You just have to play around with and see what works well. So now I'm dipping my paper. I want to fold it so the center hits first and just let it drop in. I don't want it to touch the sides. And then lift it out. And it's just such a quick, once you get everything prepared, this part is actually very, very quick. You don't want to leave that in there for too long. Once I remove that, I'm going to take it out and rinse it off with just a really light flow of water in the sink. And when I pull this out, you'll see how much white there is. And that's all areas that I let the gall, that clear stuff, really show through. That's why I ended up with so much of the pretty white. This one, I think, was my favorite of the 2. I really, really liked how this one came out. But the other one worked better for the project. I'll show you that I ended up doing at the end. So what I did is take a paper towel and just wipe the dye that I have in there, and just kind of pushed it to the side so I could start fresh. So I didn't have to mix a whole new batch. I'm able to use what I have there. I'm just removing the dye that's on the water surface. And then just put that paper towel to the side. And now I'm going to add more of the dye, and I added even more this time. Like I mentioned earlier, I added so much more than I did the first time. I like to experiment when I do things. So if, like the first time, I thought I didn't add that much, so I figured, well, then on the next try, I want to add even more and see what happens, see what the difference is. If I'm going to repeat a process, I want to try something different and see which way I like best. Plus, I just had so much fun doing the first one, I thought I have to go ahead and marble both of these pieces of paper. This paper is really cool. It's almost like fabric, or a kind of a cloth. It doesn't rip at all. It's very soft, very, very thick. It's called a non-woven microfiber paper. And just like before, adding lots of ink, but this time I was even squeezing more out of the bottle. You just squeeze it directly onto or into the water. You can actually do really cool things where you create a drop and then put a smaller drop inside that one and a smaller one inside that one. You can get a lot of really cool effects. So here is that Gall stuff again, the clear stuff that is going to create more white areas. You can see how as I add that, it pushes the dye to the side anywhere where I add it. And with that, you really want to make sure you dilute it. You don't want to just squeeze that straight out of the bottle. It's too concentrated. And so where I added it, where it pushed the ink or the dye aside, now I'm going back into some of those with a little bit more color to create different shapes. I'm just adding more of the dye inside of previous areas. And I decided to try a different way. This is where I took my hairpins and the thread that I was using to dry the paper initially, and I just dragged the hairpin through by holding onto the string, just dragged it through my design there. And this gave me a much thinner look. The lines were way thinner than what my first design with the straw that I initially mixed with gave me. Adding a little bit more of my clear stuff. I'm going to drag that through again with the hairpin and the string. And I've seen videos where people used just tons and tons of different things to create different patterns for the marbled effect. So same thing, letting it lay in from the center. Now you can already see as soon as it goes, the paper hits, how much more concentrated my design is, how much more ink I have in there. Just want that to set for a few seconds. And then I'm going to pull that out and then rinse it in the sink just like I did the other one. And I just left these laying flat to dry. When I first pull this out of the water, it'll have a lot more of that purple tint to it. Once I rinse it out or rinse it off in the sink, that will pull a lot of the white back out. But when you rinse it, you don't want to rinse it under really high pressure water. You just want it lightly flowing over. But I didn't have any problem with my design lifting off this paper at all. I just kept the water pressure down pretty low. This is what I ended up doing with one of my marbled pieces. I printed out some instructions that came with a sewing machine from 1949 that are really funny to read nowadays. But I wanted to print that out for a friend, so I thought this made for a beautiful backdrop for that, and I just matted it. Now he can frame it however he likes. So this is one idea of what you can do with this paper. You can use it to make cards. I mean, there's just so many things that you can do. And this box comes with calligraphy pens. So if you're doing any type of card making, I mean, the possibilities are endless with what came in this set, what you can do with it. But this is just one idea of a finished product or project that you can make with this marbling technique. I can't talk. You guys know that. You're not surprised. How cool is that? I'm a nerd. This is really exciting for me. If you would like to sign up to get your own Smart Art box, I have a link along with a coupon code that will give you a discount off your subscription for life below in the video description. I've also got listed all of the countries that this is available to. I wonder what watercolor paper would look like in this. I've got enough stuff. I may have to try that out. The box came with enough supplies that I could try this out on several types of paper, so I think I'm going to be experimenting with this. Have you subscribed yet? If not, I have a handy button right there. It's round, has an orange arrow going to it. You can't miss it. If you click on that, that'll help you to keep up to date with all of my new art videos every single week.